Oh yes, I'm on top of the roof. Hey, I just gotta tell you, you look fabulous.
Watch Dogs 2 is an interesting game. I remember my dad bought it for me Christmas the year it was released. What I really wanted was Grand Theft Auto 5, but my parents told me that it was too violent and I would have to wait till I was older to play it. Up until I got Watch Dogs 2 for Christmas, I had been playing Just Cause 3, which was an alright substitute for Grand Theft Auto 5, but it was definitely lacking in some areas, which I'm sure were only magnified by my archaic Xbox One. So with this in mind, it's no wonder that I instantly fell in love with Watch Dogs 2. It seemed like there was so much detail put into the world, as if it was limitless. Thinking back on it now, if you do go outside of the map, the game just cheaply teleports you back. Regardless, I was infatuated with Watch Dogs 2. So infatuated, in fact, that I made my mom buy me the Prima Strategy Guide for Watch Dogs 2. Which is this massive, colossal book that basically just contains information you could just find with one Google search. Basically a waste of paper. I even brought the book to school, regardless of the fact that it barely even fit in my backpack. All this came to an end when my parents decided that Watch Dogs 2 was too violent for me, and they banned me from playing it. I wouldn't play Watch Dogs 2 again until my Xbox days were long gone. And good God, did it age poorly.
どうしたんだ?
In Watch Dogs 2, you play as Marcus Holloway, a recruit for a hacker group in San Francisco called DedSec. There, with his newfound team, Satara, Josh, Horatio, and Wrench, they work together to reach their end goal of destroying Bloom, the corporation that developed CTOS, which is like an operating system but for cities, and is the reason you can hack things like cars and people's phones in the game. The whole concept of CTOS is built off a massive invasion of privacy, which is why DedSec aims to take it down. The plot of the first Watch Dogs game is to take down CTOS. The plot of Watch Dogs 2 is to take down CTOS 2, and the plot of Watch Dogs Legion is to take down CTOS 3. Basically, in Watch Dogs 2, you spend the whole game going after the CEO of Bloom, Dusan Nemec. Before accomplishing that goal, Marcus and DedSec have to work their way up to Bloom by taking down or trying to isolate corporations that affiliate or work with Bloom, as well as trying to earn followers by doing flashy things like putting up graffiti on the Golden Gate Bridge, exposing different corporations for doing shady legal stuff, etc. Progress in the beginning seems pretty slow, but Marcus starts to make bigger hits as time goes on, and the story starts to deviate a little. Around this point, DedSec takes a hard hit when they realize that half of the followers they've been trying to get over the course of the game were just bots from Dusan Nemec, trying to set them up for disaster. During this period of peril, they go to a festival out in the desert as a means of therapy and a way of getting back up and fighting back. It's there that DedSec meets a character from the first game called Raymond Kenny. He encourages them to try bigger hits and aids DedSec for the remainder of the game, ultimately leading them to the final mission where you infiltrate the main Bloom building and finally end Dusan Nemec's reign by getting him arrested. And also Horatio dies. Watch Dogs is one of those basic third-person open-world games, and it would be very similar to its contemporaries if it wasn't for the hacking mechanic. In Watch Dogs, you can hack things like cars and people's phones, as well as a variety of other options, which add to the gameplay immensely. However, most of the hacking you can do is focused on stealth gameplay. The stealth gameplay is fun at first, but it gets tiring after many hours of repetition. The stealth gameplay is the same as every other Ubisoft game where you have these icons that indicate whether or not the enemy has spotted you. You know, the ones that are in practically every fucking Ubisoft game ever. And aside from a few missions that are simply drive from point A to point B then back to A again, the hacking mechanic and the stealth gameplay blend together for a very enjoyable experience in the campaign. And then there's the multiplayer. Multiplayer mode for Watch Dogs 2 feels like it was an afterthought. There are a few different types of missions that you can do with friends, but they all pretty much boil down to the exact same formula. On top of this, there are some races you can take part in, but I'm pretty sure that not a single person on planet Earth aside from me has ever played them. Generally, multiplayer feels really laggy and haphazardly put together, It seems like Watch Dogs 2 was never intended to have a multiplayer mode, but the developers just sort of saw the success of GTA Online and decided that they could do the same thing. Although there is literally no incentive to play online with other players. You gain followers from playing online missions, which is basically just experience points, but once you get past level 23, you can't gain any more experience and you're locked at level 23 for the rest of the game. Which doesn't make any sense, because then why the hell would anyone ever want to play online missions if there's literally no incentive? There's also a sort of PvP thing you can do where you hack another player and like download something and you have to stay around the same area that they're in without getting caught by them. And once you get caught, you either have to escape or they'll kill you and the thing ends. This happened to me and my friends a few times while we were playing, but pretty much everyone that does it either doesn't understand the mechanics of it or sucks at PvP, so all of the encounters end about the same way. Aside from the fact that most of the content in multiplayer mode is just boring, the main issue with it is how buggy it is. Using nothing but this flatbed truck, you can go straight through any solid wall. NPCs will randomly just clip through solid surfaces as well. The biggest bug we found was when one of my friends out of nowhere just became invincible. We were doing one of these like stupid kill the really overpowered bullet sponge robot missions, and we failed it by me driving my car over the robot, and we found that he couldn't take any damage from anything.
This is kind of funny.
This is bullshit.
Which, as you can imagine, is a pretty big bug for a multiplayer game. All of these different factors combined adds up to a game mode that's somewhat fun to play with friends for, I'd say, about a few days before it ultimately just gets tiring and you move on to the next thing to play with your friends.
Woke up in the morning and I got diphtheria. Animal?
Overall, the graphics look pretty okay for a game that was made in 2016, but there's an abusive amount of HDR in the game. Like whenever you leave any sort of interior, you'll just become fucking blinded by the amount of light coming in. The HDR in Watch Dogs 2 is somehow even worse than the HDR in Counter-Strike Source. The difference in level of detail is very, very noticeable. Like if you look down the scope of a sniper rifle and look at like a mountain or a highway that's very far away from you, the cars are going to be rendered in absolutely shit quality. This is because in order to save as much processing power as possible, games will render things that are far away from you in lower detail than they do things that are closer than you. This is called level of detail, and a lot of games get around this by only rendering what you're looking at in the distance in high quality. Like if you're looking at a sniper scope, it'll only render what you're looking at in that high quality, but when you're not using the sniper scope, it won't look like that at all. But this is not the case in Watch Dogs 2. Things that are far away look like absolute shit. As someone who has visited San Francisco, I enjoy how true to life the game is. I like seeing different sort of streets and stuff that is the same in real life. But that's about it. Overall, Watch Dogs 2 is okay. It has a bit too many bugs for multiplayer, and it gets kind of tiring after a while, but it's an okay-ish game.